Welcome, everybody, to this month's edition of Whiskey and Wealth Tech. I'm Serman, the Managing Director of Wealth here at First Rate. Joining me today is Blake Miller, the Chaplain of First Rates, and also the host of the First Rate Legacy podcast. So today is a bit unique that we're going to have a bit of a crossover episode between the two shows. We're going to be talking about whiskey like we normally do in our podcast, but then instead of talking about a wealth tech topic specifically, we'll be talking about Blake's podcast, what that means for First Rate, how that ties into wealth tech, and we'll go from there and see where the conversation leads us.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can combine whiskey and reverence, great things happen, right?
Absolutely.
I kid, of course, but kind of. But yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for thinking of me, and thanks for pouring whiskey in my office, or bourbon, I should say.
Absolutely. So speaking of the bourbon, today we've got a pretty special bottle here. It's the Peerless Small Batch Bourbon out of Louisville, Kentucky. And so I actually had the opportunity to visit this distillery in person a few weeks ago and did the tour, and it was a pretty incredible experience. Very knowledgeable folks, very cool operation they have set up there. And so one of the interesting things about this distillery is it was actually started pre-prohibition, went out of business, when most everybody went out of business.
Prohibition will do that to you.
Yeah, when you're not allowed to sell your main products, that kind of ruins your business plan there. And but in the last few years, a descendant of the founder was able to restart the distillery, and the U.S. government gave them back their DSP license, so their distilled spirits permit. So Peerless has the DSP of Kentucky of 50. So that sounds like a pretty high number until you realize that if you started a distillery today in Kentucky, you'd be in the upper 20,000s. So
they're very much an OG.
Yeah, so very much an OG, and have a wonderful product. And so without further ado, let's dive right in here.
All right.
So cheers.
Cheers. It smells like it won't burn.
No, it's very, very, very smooth. I get a lot of cinnamon and vanilla, maybe like a baked apple pie on the nose there.
That is good. That is smooth. My throat isn't regretting it. It really just is a nice, calm, smooth, mellow bourbon.
Yeah, this is a good after dinner sipper.
Yeah,
goes down easy, keeps you warm at night. As we're getting into these colder months, definitely a good standard pour to have around.
Yes. Although in Texas, colder months mean 65 for Christmas, but yeah.
Might still be wearing shorts for Christmas, so we'll see.
But then who knows? We might have a blizzard come through and snowpocalypse 2.0 in February.
There's a lot of truth in that
It's
as well.
Texas.
Peerless also makes a fantastic rye. So if you are more inclined towards ryes, they've also got you covered there. And again, this is just right in the middle of downtown Louisville, a few blocks away from some of the other famous distilleries you may have heard of. And so if you're in the town, I highly recommend checking them out. So Blake, tell me a little bit more about the Legacy podcast, what it's about, why you started it, and kind of what you hope to get out of interviewing people like me, really, to hear their stories and help inspire others.
Yeah, so the Legacy podcast, it actually is an abbreviation, an acronym for the 4 core values of First Rate, which is love, give, serve, and enjoy. So with that, you get love, LGSE, and if you kind of finagle how you say those 4 letters in a word, it kind of sounds like legacy, and we just run with it. But those 4 core values very much are a part of the legacy of the founding of First Rate and what First Rate wants to continue being for decades, generations, centuries to come, hopefully. And so that's kind of what the podcast is to look at one or a few of the different core values with a guest, and how that core value is integrated into a specific moment or kind of a broader area of their life and their work, in or around First Rate, and how we support and encourage and help facilitate people living their lives and living out these core values. And so it's fun to get to hear these stories. I very much am a storyteller. As myself, I've joked about the Reverend bit, but whenever us pastors get up to a pulpit, we can find a pulpit wherever we want, and we very much are into storytelling. The Legacy podcast really is about storytelling through First Rate and the intrinsic value of our core values. So it's fun to get to do that with individuals and hear stories from you as well, and hear a little about the legacy you're creating with your podcast.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I'm happy to be a part of it and help create that legacy.
Yeah. And that's one of the things, even though it's not a core value at First Rate, we talk always about pursuing your primary aim, and there's many ways that manifests. And one of the things that one of your primary passions is whiskey. From the first time I met you, right after I first started, you came back to full-time here after you'd done some part-time before, and right away you're introducing me to the world of whiskey that I knew enough, but not anywhere near what you knew. And so it was fun to get that bond, and then see the passion that you have for that, and then see how that same passion appears in different ways throughout your work here at First Rate, because of the love you have for the science and the taste of this whiskey. We can see in many of the interactions you have with clients and the community, and our coworkers, how that passion, that love comes out in different ways and actions at First Rate and through your work. And so that's what we love, people pursuing their primary aim, because at First Rate we get to enjoy through the 4 core values your best self. And so we appreciate that.
Oh, thank you for that, and I agree. I think it's certainly been a game changer for me, talking with clients, talking with coworkers, just talking about First Rate in general, that people think it's amazing that this is something that I can actually do. That it's like, wait a minute, you're a financial technology company, and you're allowed to have a podcast about drinking whiskey, and you've got other folks that are pursuing their primary aims that are just all across the board, and it's a pretty amazing company that we're able to do that without that having a potential negative impact on our careers, or if we're giving everything we need to be giving to the company, but really that those outside passions not only not take away from what we're doing with the company, but actually make our experience with First Rate that much better.
Oh yeah, and make our experience. Just the clients always say they can tell the difference, not just in our product and our facilities, but in the people and how we interact, and it comes on both ends. And so it's nice for me in my role as the chaplain First Rate, getting to work with all the First Raters and provide care and counseling for them and their families, just to hear how much that family gets extended to the clients, and how knowing that bond has been formed because of how the 4 core values are lived out through the way each First Rater does their work, and thus their family grows to be who they're working for. And so it's nice to see. And then because of that, I also ended up being a source of care for clients as well. And so it's amazing to see how quickly a family grows through a company, because of how people live out their true selves and their best selves, and how those 4 core values really just kind of manifest that bestness. Bestness is not a word, but I'm gonna stick with it.
We'll give it to you.
Yeah. But so you've started this podcast. I mean, you're the a rising star at First Rate. I mean, you got to kind of, this is a self plug. We're making you do a self plug because you just got a pretty distinguished honor recently.
Yes. So recently I was named as part of the inaugural class of Arlington, Texas's top 40 under 40. And so First Rate is based out of Arlington, Texas. So right between Dallas and Fort Worth, where the Cowboys actually play. If you're unaware, they don't.
But they're still the Dallas Cowboys. I live in Dallas. He lives in Arlington.
And they never actually played in Dallas, but that's
it's
for another story. But I was honored to be inducted in this inaugural class. I was driving to work one day and had one of my mentors call me and say, "Hey, I want to nominate you for this honor. I think you're deserving of it, and that you've had an impact on the community in Arlington. That you've had an impact on First Rate, and that I really think that you have a shot of getting this." And so I filled out some information and ended up being named. And so pretty great honor. I was extremely appreciative to just be thought of.
Yeah.
I had no expectation that anything would come of it. It was nice to think that at least one person
had
the faith in me and just went out of their way, even if it was a 5-minute conversation, to say, "Hey, I think you deserve this." And so it went all the way to me actually being honored with this award. And First Rate was kind enough to be the presenting sponsor at the 40 under 40 event. So we had David Stone speak to the greater Arlington community, talking about the types of leaders that these 40 people are and going to continue to shape Arlington. It's the biggest small town in the world. We've got over 400,000 people, so it's not exactly a small city.
Not a small town.
But it's in great need of leaders, especially from younger folks, to be able to take Arlington into the next generation and really continue the upward trajectory of the city that we have. And First Rate has been extremely supportive of that. And we not only care about our employees within these 4 walls here at First Rate, but we care about their families. We care about the community in which we live, in which we work. We care about the community in which we do business. So where our clients are, where our international offices are. And so that ripple effect is tremendous whenever you see the impact globally that First Rate has. So not just in Arlington, but all across the world.
Yeah, and it's such an honor to have, and I plugged it because with wealth tech and with so many industries, it's all about, if you have to maintain a legacy, you need new generations to take on that mantle. You need innovation from the young whippersnappers. You need someone to help start taking on that mantle. And it's great to see that people recognize how you're doing that. And even our founding, Dave himself, he might not have been as young, but he was still a young whippersnapper who was looking to innovate the wealth tech industry, and he had a vision, and from it started this legacy of First Rate. And it's now in that transition where it's in order to maintain the legacy of First Rate, maintain the legacy of the 4 core values, it's going to take the innovation of individuals like yourself and many other here at First Rate that are younger than I, and age me in ways that crush my soul at the most random of points every other day. But even though it's humbling, it's also exciting. But that's such a key factor for wealth tech in any industry, but especially at First Rate, is to keep the legacy going. We need the next generation. And so it's great to see you all stepping up and providing fresh voices and ideas for the company.
Absolutely. And again, just thinking of that next generation, it's not just people, but it's for wealth tech, it's products. Yes, with the AI, utilizing how trends are impacting the ways in which people use technology. And so, we have to continue looking at innovation and continuing to evaluate what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we could potentially be doing it better. And so looking at that in ourselves, looking at that in our products, is very key, and being self-aware, and being humble about it is key to being able to embrace that growth and accept the change that, we need in our products, and we need in our people, and we need in ourselves.
I used to be scared of AI before I worked at First Rate. I just always assumed it'd be like Skynet from Terminator, and that also probably aged me a little bit to get that reference. Hopefully more of our audience got it.
Hey, I'm not that young.
And so I guess one other thing I wanted to talk about for the Legacy podcast and for yours as well, it's just kind of, going back to this idea of young innovators taking on the mantle. How do you, as a managing director, and being such a young managing director, how do you use any of the four core values in the way you kind of lead and inspire those within your team that are younger or maybe even older? How do you let any of those values, maybe your primary aims, kind of inspire and lead your team and First Rate as a whole into the next chapter of its WealthTech journey?
Sure. So I would say, I try to encompass all of the different four core values in the way I lead. Love, giving, serving, and enjoying. But I think kind of at the root of that, the reason why love is first is because it's the most important of those four values. So I think if you're loving appropriately, then the others tend to fall in line pretty easily behind that. Yeah. So for me, I've got over 10 people on my team that I'm leading on a regular basis that I'm trying to be innovative. I'm taking what I've learned from prior managers, from prior managing directors, and seeing, okay, what worked, what didn't, how can I apply that to my team? How can I apply that to the situation? And how can I do that through a lens of love? And so, whenever somebody messes up on my team, or we're dealing with a client issue, and we got to get it fixed. How do we do that? Through an expression of love. And so how do we do that in a loving way? And like you made this point earlier, that clients even see that in how our people act and how we interact with them versus some of their other partners, their other vendors. It's a stark difference in how we communicate with them and how we interact with them. And so I try to demonstrate that through my own actions. As a leader, I have to lead myself first. And so I can't be leading from behind, not, acting in a loving way, not being transparent, not, being willing to roll up my sleeves and do the dirty work. And then expect my team to do all of those things. So I have to do that myself. In order to demonstrate that's how a leader should act, for my team to then step up and be leaders in their own rights, and to have the confidence to address situations, have the confidence to make decisions that are within their sphere of influence. And I'm really trying to build that autonomy within the team, and that confidence that if they know the right thing to do in a situation, they know they can do it, and they have my support to make those decisions and not be worried about repercussions, because we all make mistakes sometimes, and if they make a mistake, they'll know the team's there to support them. I'm there to support them, and there to help protect them as they continue to learn and continue to build experience. And that goes from my employees that are very young to not so young. And so, I mean, there's really no age limit on that, because, if you stop learning, you start dying. And so,
the AI will take over.
Yeah, take over. It'll replace you. But, there's no age limit in which, okay, I've learned everything. There's no more growth for me. And so really, just demonstrating love in, the way I try to I try to do this again, certainly not perfect in this, but trying to demonstrate the kind of ways in which I would like my team to act by acting in that way myself. There's not anything I would do that or anything I would ask my team to do that I wouldn't be willing to do myself. So you know, if there's a mundane task that I'm too important for, then that's a problem. And so I need to be willing to step up and do the little things to make the big picture work appropriately. And that's something that I want to encourage my team to do, encourage them to, branch out, make choices, really try to grow their experience and demonstrate that this job that we have isn't just a job, and that, we spend whatever 80% of our, hours a week at work, something like that. It's something that we need to enjoy what we do, and we need to find a way to be exceedingly good at it. And to enjoy it, and to wake up and be excited about going to work, and not just dread that, oh, another day at the office, I got to deal with these people again. But really encourage them to take the bull by the horns and make the most of this experience that we get to have together.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you really step up and are willing to do even the smallest of tasks. So I really appreciate us being able to do this little joint venture. I've enjoyed getting to hear more from you and your story, and the way you're stepping up to extend the legacy of First Rate and that the four core values through your leadership and through the innovation that and the products that this company has put out there. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Blake. I know it's interesting being the one getting asked questions more than asking questions.
It's having two hosts, and what sometimes they can say too many cooks in the kitchen is a bad thing, but I've enjoyed this dual Hell's Kitchen experience.
Well, I appreciate you offering to have me on your episode, and
vice versa,
and making this joint venture here. I think it was a great change of pace. Wonderful to get to spend some time with you, drink some great bourbon. And,
yes, very much so.
Looking forward to doing this again sometime. And thanks for tuning in to Whiskey and Wealth Tech. Appreciate you tuning in, and looking forward to talking with you here shortly.
Cheers.
Cheers.